Amen. I am coming. You guys have to be a little more patient. I'm coming. All right. Good morning, everyone. Happy Christmas, Merry Christmas, whatever you say during this time of year. Oh, yeah. Feliz Navidad. Yes, I'm giving you the sermon this morning. And actually, we've had a series about worship. And so this morning, we're talking about the worship of Jesus and basically the Christmas story. And so I don't do this very often. You don't see me, I guess you see me up here a lot, but not doing this kind of thing. It's been a number of years. And you have the best plans in mind when you start off planning for something, right? And then the week comes and you're like, where did all this stuff come from? So it's been a busy week, and I had to, for the first time in over 15 years, I had to travel to Massachusetts for a couple of days, and I was on this business trip, and I was trying to figure out how to plan the sermon, but so it's busy, and that's basically the nature of this time of year, isn't it? Like you just you think you have everything planned out, like what you want to do, okay, when you have to do what, when you have to prepare, when you have to go shopping, when you have to do all this stuff, and then more stuff comes on, or somebody comes in from town that you didn't expect, or I don't know, you hit tons of traffic and you didn't expect that and it delays you. But it's a wonderful time of year. It's a great time of year. You get to see so many things, light displays and people gathering as family. So I kind of wanted to just give it a show of hands, like who loves decorations? Like who loves to not put them up, right? Who loves to look at decorations, right? Yeah, everybody. And who loves gathering with friends and family? Who likes to see family they haven't seen in a while? Yep. And then let's say, who likes to get and give gifts for Christmas? Yeah, Paris has his hand way up for that one. Probably the receiving part, right? And then how many people love the food during this time? Yes, it's amazing. You put on all those pounds so that you can say that you lost weight next year, right? So you can, I lost more weight because I put on a lot during the holidays. So, but this time is not about those things, right? It's not about, I mean, it's really nice that we get to do all these things, but that's what this holiday is not about, all those things. It's about Christ and worship. And that's what Christmas means, actually. Christ and Mass means worship. So, we kind of lose sight of that with all the busyness and the things that are going on. And we don't keep Jesus as the center of our focus during these holidays. So, I think the one reason why that we lose focus is that we're just too busy, right? I mean, all the busyness just, we can only do so much, and there's too much going on, and we're running around and we're trying to do all these things in 1 month of the year, and you do all these things that you don't normally do, right? You write Christmas cards, you try and figure out how to make Christmas cookies like the night before you have to bring them, and you're making pierogies if you're Polish like Andrea and Lithuanian. We're trying to do all these things to make it great, and top it off, the kids are out of school, right? Yeah, and you have to deal with them at the same time. So and another reason that we may not worship Jesus during this time is that we may not know what worship is. You may not know how to worship, you may not know what it is. And so the original English word is kind of it kind of makes sense. You see it like worth and ship. And so the worth is how much value you give to something. And, the ship is the acknowledgement of that worth. So when you come to worship, depending on how you worship is basically saying how much value you give to whatever it is you're worshiping. So, I mean, if you're worshiping your money or your possessions, how much time do you spend with that? How much time do you devote? What value do you give to those things? How important are they to you? And when you're worshiping God, you do the same thing. When you come to church on Sunday, It's about worship. It's about what value do you come in here on Sunday morning giving to God. And a lot of that value comes from how much, we give to God. So it is a humbling, it is a convicting kind of thing. Like, am I really even thinking about God when I come in to worship? Well, I mean, you may not even think about it as worship. You may think about it as church. It might be church. I'm coming to church. No, are you coming to worship? That's what we should be doing. We should be coming to worship. We're not coming to, in some ways, we are coming as a, to fellowship. We're coming to do all these different things, to say hi, to see people we haven't seen in a while. But the main purpose of coming to church is to worship. And so I wanted to look at an example, and it's the first Christmas, the first time Jesus was worshiped. And so we're going to Matthew 2, verses 1 to 12. We're going to read that. And as we go through the scripture, I'm going to point out just things that can help us to worship God, and things right out of the scripture here. So here it goes. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of King Herod, Magi from the east, so they're from the east, came to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews?" And so we're going to circle from the east, and where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? "We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." When King Herod when King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and the teachers of the law, he asked them where the Messiah was to be born. "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, in the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah, for out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report to me so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way, and the star they had seen when it rose went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. So we're going to also circle bowed down and worshiped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts. We're going to circle that one. Of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. So we're going to circle that too. All right, so we're going to look at the wise men. And, this is an amazing story. It's basically about the birth of Jesus and these wise men, they call them magi, that came to worship Jesus. And it's just amazing that these people that were probably not Jews, they probably were not religious, came to see Jesus because they saw this star. And they wanted to worship Jesus. They wanted to see him, see what this is all about. And so my point one is start with a sincere desire. And this might sound really easy, but if you don't want to worship, you won't worship, right? If you don't come in here ready to worship, it might take a while, but it may not even happen. But if you want to worship, it'll happen. And so in Matthew 2:1, it says the Magi came from the east. And the Magi's were, they were political advisors a lot of times. We don't know exactly what these Magi were, but we do know that they were probably very good in different things like math, science, astronomy, agriculture, different things like that. They had a knowledge and they had a wisdom to them that made them be called the Magi, the wise men. And so these Magi saw the star, and they went on a journey. And it's kind of interesting that these non-religious magi would, be seeking out, this star. They saw this star, and we're going to go, they're going to travel possibly for weeks or months to try and find where Jesus was. And so they had this, they wanted to see Jesus. They had this hunger. They did a lot. They sacrificed a lot to come and see Jesus. And so, when you think of hunger, a lot of times we think about physical hunger, right? Probably think about those cookies over there, right? We think about even this coming week, you're probably going to have celebrations. You're going to have lots of food to eat. And so I put a couple pictures up for you guys of things that, you might be eating in this past week. So there's this turkey here, and we're going too fast here. Wow. And in the previous one, you see whole tray. I mean, they must have how many people coming over? 30 some people coming over, all those rolls. And then the next one, they have the turkey it wasn't enough, so they had to put bacon all around it. And so, yeah. And then the next one, just a nice little table there. And then what was the next one? Oh gosh, they got gingerbread houses. I don't know if anybody made gingerbread houses, and then dessert. Yes. And a lot of people, that's the main course for them, right? The dessert. Some people will, my niece included, will actually plan out their meal based on what desserts are there. So, okay, I want to save room for that, whatever, that cake or that pie or those cookies. And so I think some of you may even be getting hungry right now, right? Yeah. That you see all those things, and then you start to get hungry, right? You start to crave those physical desires. And, there's physical needs that we have, like eating, and then there's spiritual needs. And sometimes the spiritual needs are kind of hard to fill, right? Sometimes you don't know how to fill those spiritual needs. And, sometimes you may feel empty, you may feel lonely, you may not feel like you have a place or something in your life. And so then sometimes we try and fill those spiritual needs with physical things, right? You try and, all right, I feel empty, so I'm going to go shopping. Or I feel, empty, so I'm going to go binge eat or binge watch movies or do something like that. You try and, fill that space inside because, but you do it in ways that won't really fill you spiritually. And so that's what worship is. It's how to fill those spiritual needs in spiritual ways. And worship really does that. I mean, that's one of the reasons why I'm a worship leader. I didn't grow up in a choir and church and growing up. I didn't start singing till I was out of college. Basically in college, but just getting out of college, I started singing. So, it's definitely something that you have to want to do in your heart, and worship will fill that hole, fill that need. And it's really important. I mean, otherwise you do go into those other ways of trying to fill it. And those physical, trying to fill those things physically will lead to addictions and things like that. You keep, trying to feed yourself physically by these things, and you still haven't fixed the problem, but you end up just trying and not getting anywhere. So he's the one that can fulfill these needs of emptiness, loneliness, and he's our need for significance. So point 2, we have develop an expectant spirit. You need to come to Jesus ready to worship. You have to expect to worship. And in Matthew 2:2, it says, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose and have come to worship him." And the Magi were coming to worship him. That was the whole point of coming to find Jesus. They were searching. That was one thing, that they were searching and longing. And it's like, I know we probably touched on this many times in the past couple of weeks, but are you ready when you come to service in the morning? Do you spend a few minutes? Do you spend time on your way here getting ready for worship, whether it be by singing or praying or reading some scriptures? Do you come here in the morning just ready to worship? And even like beyond that, like when you get here, do you get here at 9:45 so that you can fellowship and service, and then at 10 o'clock you're ready to worship? Or do you try and squeeze in that fellowship during the first song or two? I mean, it's, I really, that was, actually one thing, kind of a gripe of mine. Like when I first started coming out to church in another church that's related to ours, but I was like, why are people like carrying on for song after song? Like we're singing, and then we have all these clusters of people having their own conversations, and we're trying to sing over those conversations. And it just hurt my heart. I was like, why do we do that? Like, what are we here for? Are we trying to catch up on our fellowship during church? That doesn't make sense. And so that was something that I saw a lot then, and I still see it now. And I have to just check my heart and make sure that even if I see that, I need to make sure I am worshiping, like not be looking at them over there and like, oh man, they're worshiping. They're not worshiping. They're having a conversation. No, I can't let my heart get cold, get hard because of that. I have to still worship God, but I am concerned about everybody else. Like everybody else is not worshiping, and that's what we're here to do. And how does God feel about that? So, choose to express joy. Point number 3. I have 6 points, so we're almost halfway done. I'm gonna, like, after this sermon, I'm gonna be like, oh man, I could just rest now. I can just enjoy the rest of my afternoon. And yes, I got some time off tomorrow, and so I'm gonna enjoy that. So choose to express joy. And one thing about joy is that a lot of times you have to make joy happen. You can't just like have joy. Well, some people can have joy. Like, I don't know. I'm not that way. Like I have to like mentally think about what I'm joyful for. Like, what am I grateful for? And that's a lot of times the only way that I can like get into that place where I can express it. Like, what am I grateful for? So, and as you in Matthew chapter 10, it says, not 10, Matthew 2:10 says, when they saw the star, they were overjoyed. And, they chose to express joy, even just seeing the star, like they saw the star, they haven't even seen Jesus yet. And they were overjoyed because they had been anticipating it for so long. And that's the way it is with us. Are we anticipating? Are we trying to think about what we're grateful for throughout the week so that we can express that joy in our worship when we get together? It's different ways of expressing joy. People have different ways. Like some people dance, like Pedro, I've heard. I missed his party, but Pedro is a dancer, I guess. And other people like to dance. Now we're all pointing fingers everywhere. And some of you like to raise hands and worship, and that's great. And I don't think that we should feel like if somebody is next to us raising their hands, like if we don't feel like we should raise our hands, we shouldn't have to feel guilty about that. We have ways of worshiping God in our own way. But so, you just have to make it your own. What do you think when you worship God? If you are thinking about it so much that it becomes a physical thing and you raise your hands, don't worry about that. Everybody's, we can do whatever we want. To a point, you can do whatever you want. And so yeah, yeah. All right. So make worship your own. Find what you're joyful for and make it your own. And okay, number 4, decide to humble yourself. Yeah. Okay. Matthew 2:11, it says, on coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshiped him. And so these magi humbled themselves, like really think about it. Like, can you imagine these? I don't know, maybe they're like JP, some professor or something at Rutgers, trying to find this child, and they find this child in a stable and they have to bow down. What were they bowing down into? Like they probably had hay, maybe poop, things like that most people don't like to talk about. But they actually bowed down and worshiped Jesus, and that had to be humbling. I mean, they had the stature, they had everybody looking up to them, and yet they realized that they were in the presence of somebody greater than themselves, and they bowed down and worshiped Jesus. And so that's what we're also in our hearts, and sometimes even physically, we should bow down to worship Jesus and worship him at church. And so, we have to have that humble attitude. We have to have that I am not good. I'm not sinless. I have so much that I need to give to God in my worship. And so, point 5, plan to give gifts. Yes, we got another amen from Paris. Well, kind of. Yes, plan to give gifts. When you're walking in, think of it as a gift. My worship is a gift I'm giving to God. Have you ever had somebody, like, you probably can think of somebody that you can't figure out what to give as a gift? Like every Christmas you're like, or their birthday, like, what am I going to give this person? They have everything that they want. And I think I'm guilty of that. Andrea says I'm guilty of that. Like, like if I want something, I buy it myself. Like, I don't wait for my birthday. Like, I don't just buy stuff, but I mean, like, within reason. I mean, but if I need something, I'm not going to wait. I'm going to buy it. So, so some people are hard to give gifts to. And for myself, it's my parents. Like, they have everything, and they always say, "Oh, the best gift you can give is yourself." And I'm like, "No, I want to give you something. I want to give you a present. But it is like, that's what it is. The best gift we can give is ourself. And when we're worshiping God, we're giving God a gift. And and so we have to be thinking about that. Okay, how is my worship? Am I giving my all? Am I giving everything to God? Am I giving him my joy? Am I giving him my gratitude and my thankfulness? And and that really shows. You can see it on people's, well, it's hard with masks. You can see it when people don't have masks on their faces sometimes. Like, if they're just kind of like looking down and they're not mumbling or something like that, you're like, are you really worshiping? Are you really giving to God? And so we have to be mindful of that. We're giving to God, we're giving him a gift in worship. And so I was going to say 3 wise men. I didn't want to say 3 wise men. The Magi gave 3 gifts to Jesus, and it's kind of interesting what gifts they gave him. They gave him gold, and yes, 2:11b. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And so the first gift they gave was gold, and gold was a gift that was given to kings. You would give, it was the most precious metal that they had, and the most sought after metal that they had for various reasons, and currency and stuff like that. And they recognized him as king by giving him gold, and they gave him their best. And you have to give God your best in the same way. And then moving on to frankincense, they gave him frankincense, and they were recognizing him as a priest. Frankincense was used a lot of times in worship. It was used, to, I don't know why they use it. Like, Andrea doesn't like it at all, actually, but it was definitely something that they used in worship to God, and the priests used it, and they recognized Jesus as a priest. They recognized that Jesus was their, well, I want to take that back. a priest is a bridge builder, right? You think of what a priest is. Jesus connected or connects us to God, right? Jesus is our high priest and he connects us to God, and we are also priests, and we also will connect others to God through our lives. So in 1 Peter 2:9 in the NIV, it says, "But you are a chosen people, a royal priesthood, a holy nation, God's special possession, that you may declare the praises of him who called you out of darkness into his wonderful light." And then I like the Message version as well. It's, "But you are the ones chosen by God, God's instruments to do his work and speak out for him, to tell others of the night and day difference he made for you." And that's what we are. We're priests, and Jesus is our high priest. Jesus connects us to God, and we connect others to God as well. And so that was something that definitely the priests would do. They connect to God. And so moving on, we have one more. Yeah, give him your worst. And you're like, what? Well, you just told me to give him your best, so why would I give him my worst? Well, we have some things to reckon with God. A lot of times we have that thing called sin in our lives, and we have to make sure we're giving that to God. We're asking God for forgiveness. We're asking God, and that goes along with humbling yourself. You realize the state that you're in, where you would have been without God, without Jesus, and you give that to him. You give that to him, especially in communion. You give that to Jesus. You give that to God, and that you recognize where you are as a person. And then finally, he gave him myrrh, and that's actually something that's used in embalming people. They use that to embalm a body. So that's kind of interesting the way that Jesus was given a gift that was used for embalming, but it kind of like shows us that Jesus is about to give his life, his entire life for us, and eventually he will sacrifice his own life for us. And, he saves us from our sins. He saves us from all the hurt and the bad stuff in our lives. And so that's even more reason to give to Jesus. So give him your all. And we know that worship is going to cost us something, right? I mean, we've been given so much, but it still costs us, even though we're kind of giving back just a little bit of what Jesus gave us. We have to give our all. We have to give him our efforts and our hard work. And I mean, every morning, the singers are here around 9:15, and we're getting ready to worship so that we can help you to worship. And it's a sacrifice. It's a sacrifice to come here, pretty much an hour early every week, and to get ready to worship. But I think that's something that should be happening in everybody's lives. We should all be getting ready to worship, getting ready to give him our all. And then finally, end with obedient response. And worship will change you, right? I mean, do you ever come in with a bad attitude, or something happened on the way here? You had to go up to the next exit and come back to get here. And you're like, oh, I'm already late. No, I got to do it. So you come in here with that bad attitude, or you're not feeling too good. But then worship will change you. It'll just take that away. You forget about those things. And I think prayer is kind of the same thing too. Is like, and in a way, worship and prayer are a lot alike and pretty much the same. I mean, when we're singing to God. So it's almost like we're praying to God. We're talking to God through the words of the song, and that's something that it changes us, and we go from there throughout our week changed. And in Matthew 2:12 it says, "And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route." So they were going to go back to Herod and tell him where the child was, and they didn't. Thank goodness. And they returned by another route. And so an encounter with Jesus will change your life. It will change you. I mean, that's why we come together every Sunday, is to change our lives and to make sure we're back on that correct route that we're supposed to be going on. And so, to wrap up, I have a few discussion questions for you guys. And I think Paris is going to take over. Well, thank you guys. It was a great. Yeah.